7 celebrities walked onto the most respected stage in television history, completely out of control. The audience laughed. The cameras kept rolling. But behind the desk, Johnny Carson knew something was very wrong. In a world where one interview could make or destroy a career, some of the biggest stars took the stage under the influence and hoped no one would notice. They were wrong. From awkward silence to moments that nearly shut the show down, these appearances became unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. And what happened next changed how live television handled chaos forever. Cheech Marin walked onto the Tonight Show stage with a relaxed smile that instantly told the audience exactly who he was. No secrets, no hiding, just pure, unapologetic energy. The crowd laughed before he even spoke, because everyone already understood the vibe. This was not a normal guest. This was someone who turned his lifestyle into comedy and made the entire room part of the joke. As he sat down, his timing felt loose but strangely perfect. His responses drifted, stories stretched longer than expected, but every pause built anticipation instead of killing it. Johnny Carson didn't fight it. He leaned into it. He played the straight man, asking simple questions that made Cheech's personality shine even more. Every confused look from Carson made the audience laugh harder, turning the interview into a performance instead of a conversation. Cheech wasn't trying to be sharp or structured. That's what made it work. His natural rhythm created unpredictable moments that felt real, not scripted. The audience stayed hooked because they didn't know what he would say next, and that uncertainty became entertainment. Even when his thoughts wandered, it felt intentional, like controlled chaos that only he could pull off. What made this appearance different was honesty. He didn't pretend to be something else for television. He showed up exactly as people expected, and that authenticity built instant connection. Carson understood this and gave him space, guiding just enough to keep things moving without breaking the flow. By the end, nothing dramatic happened, no meltdown, no disaster. But that's exactly why it stood out. It proved that sometimes the most engaging television doesn't come from perfection, but from personality. Cheech Marin didn't just do an interview. He created a moment where the audience felt like they were in on something real, and that feeling is what kept them watching till the very end. Oliver Reed stepped onto the Tonight Show stage, and within seconds, something felt off. The smile was there, the confidence was loud, but underneath it was chaos waiting to break through. The audience didn't see danger yet. Johnny Carson did. And he knew this wasn't going to be a normal interview. Reed sat down, already speaking over the questions, his words slightly slurred but filled with intensity. At first, it felt entertaining, unpredictable in a way that pulled the audience in. But then the energy shifted. His voice got louder. His movements became sharper. The humor started fading, replaced by something harder to control. Carson adjusted instantly. He shortened his questions, tried to guide the conversation, but Reed wasn't following any structure. He interrupted, jumped topics, and pushed the moment further off balance. The audience laughed, unsure if this was part of the act or something slipping out of control. That uncertainty kept them watching, but it also built tension in the room. Then it crossed the line. Reed stood up without warning, his body language turning aggressive, like he was performing for a different stage entirely. For a moment, it didn't feel like television. It felt unpredictable, almost unsafe. Behind the cameras, the mood changed. People moved closer, ready in case things escalated. Carson didn't panic. He took control. His tone became firmer, his timing sharper. He cut off the chaos, redirected the moment, and brought the segment to an early end without letting it collapse completely. To the audience, it looked like a sudden shift. Behind the scenes, it was damage control at its highest level. When it was over, the decision was clear. No second chances. No return. It wasn't about being entertaining anymore. It was about crossing a line that couldn't be ignored. That night proved something important. Unpredictability can create great television, but only up to a point. Oliver Reed didn't just bring chaos to the stage. He showed exactly where entertainment ends and control becomes necessary, and why some moments are never allowed to happen twice. They told him he would never fit in anywhere. Too different, too bold, too much. But that rejection became his power, and he turned it into something the world could never ignore. Sammy Davis Jr. was not just a performer, he was a force. Born into the spotlight but raised through struggle, he learned early that talent alone was not enough. He had to be sharper, faster, better than everyone else just to stand in the same room. While others waited for opportunity, he created it. At a time when doors were closed, he walked straight through them. On stage, he was unstoppable. Singing, dancing, acting, doing impressions, there was nothing he couldn't do. Every performance felt electric, like the audience was witnessing something rare. He didn't just entertain, he connected. People saw his skill, but they felt his fight. But behind the spotlight, the pressure was real. Constant judgment, constant barriers, constant battles he never asked for. Still, he refused to slow down. He adapted, evolved, and kept proving that limits only exist for those who accept them. His life changed forever after a near-fatal car accident that took one of his eyes. For many, that would have ended everything. For him, it became another chapter of resilience. He came back stronger, sharper, and even more determined to dominate his craft. He didn't just break into the industry, he reshaped it. As part of the legendary Rat Pack alongside icons like Frank Sinatra, he stood at the center of a cultural shift. He proved that talent has no boundaries, and presence has no limits. What made him unforgettable wasn't just his ability, it was his mindset. He never waited for approval. He never asked for space. He took it. And that's the lesson. You don't need permission to stand out. You don't need validation to be great. The world might not be ready for you, but that doesn't mean you hold back. You go all in. Just like he did. They laughed at his pain, but they didn't know it was real. Every joke hit hard because it came from a place most people would never survive. Richard Pryor didn't just tell jokes, he told truth. Raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. He grew up in chaos, surrounded by struggle that could have broken anyone. But instead of hiding it, he turned it into power. While others performed, he exposed reality. Early in his career, he tried to fit the system. Safe jokes, clean delivery, playing it how the industry wanted. But it felt fake. And the moment he realized that, everything changed. He walked away from that version of himself and came back real. No filter, no fear. On stage, he became something different. Not just funny, but fearless. He talked about race, pain, addiction, identity. Things people avoided, he made unavoidable. The audience didn't just laugh, they felt it. Because it was honest. His life wasn't clean. It was messy, complicated, intense. Addiction, mistakes, moments that could have ended everything. And one of those moments nearly did. A life-threatening incident that shocked the world. But even that became part of his story, not the end of it. He came back again. Not perfect, but real. And that's what made him unstoppable. He showed that flaws don't weaken you, they make you human. And when you own them, they become your strength. He didn't just change comedy, he redefined it. He opened doors for voices that were never heard before. He proved that being yourself, fully and unapologetically, is the most powerful move you can make. That's the lesson. Stop trying to fit into what already exists. Stop hiding what makes you different. Because the moment you become real, that's the moment you become unforgettable. He didn't follow the rules, he rewrote them. While others chased fame, he chased freedom, and that changed everything. Peter Fonda was never meant to fit inside the system. Born into a legendary family, expectations were already set. But instead of repeating the past, he chose a different path. One that felt real, raw, and unpredictable. He wasn't interested in playing safe roles or pleasing the industry. He wanted something deeper. Stories that meant something. Moments that felt alive. And that mindset led him to create something no one saw coming. Then came Easy Rider. A film that wasn't just a movie, it was a movement. Low budget, high risk, and completely different from anything at the time. Two riders on the road, searching for freedom in a world full of limits. It connected instantly. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. That one project changed Hollywood. It proved that you don't need massive budgets or approval to make impact. You just need vision, courage, and the willingness to go against everything. But his journey wasn't smooth. There were ups and downs, moments of doubt, times when the spotlight faded. Still, he never chased validation. He stayed true to his direction, even when it cost him. Years later, recognition came back strong. Performances that reminded everyone who he was. Not just a name, but a presence. Someone who never compromised his identity. What made him different wasn't just talent, it was mindset. He didn't wait for opportunities, he created them. He didn't follow trends, he became one. And that's the lesson. You don't need to fit in to succeed. You don't need to follow the path that's already there. Sometimes the only way forward is to build your own road. He didn't just make people laugh, he made them uncomfortable. And that's exactly why they couldn't stop listening. George Carlin saw what others ignored. While most comedians played it safe, he went straight for the truth. Not polished, not softened, just real. He questioned everything. Language, culture, power, the system itself. And once you heard it, you couldn't unhear it. Early on, he followed the traditional path. Clean jokes, mainstream success, fitting into what was expected. But it felt limited. Controlled. And the moment he broke away from that, everything changed. He reinvented himself completely. New style, new voice, no filter. On stage, he wasn't just performing, he was exposing. Turning everyday words into powerful ideas. Making people laugh, then making them think right after. One routine could shift perspective. One line could challenge years of belief. He didn't just entertain, he disrupted. And that made him different. But that path wasn't easy. Pushing boundaries always comes with resistance. Criticism, backlash, pressure to hold back. He ignored it. Because his goal wasn't approval, it was truth. Over time, he became more than a comedian. A voice people trusted. Not because he was always right, but because he was always honest. What made him unforgettable wasn't just what he said, it was how fearless he was saying it. No hesitation. No apology. And that's the lesson. Stop filtering your voice to fit the room. Stop shrinking your ideas to avoid reaction. Because the moment you say what others are afraid to say, that's when you stand out. He didn't just write stories, he turned reality into something people couldn't escape. And once they stepped into his world, there was no looking away. Truman Capote understood something most didn't. Truth, when told the right way, hits harder than fiction. While others followed structure, he broke it. He blended journalism with storytelling and created something new. Something deeper. He wasn't interested in surface-level writing. He wanted emotion, detail, intensity. The kind that pulls you in slowly, then holds you there. Every word had purpose. Every scene felt real because it was. Then came In Cold Blood. A project that changed everything. He didn't just report a crime, he lived inside it. Studied it, felt it, understood it. The result was powerful, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. That work redefined storytelling. It showed that reality could be just as gripping as fiction if told with depth and precision. But that level of immersion came at a cost. The deeper he went, the heavier it became. Pressure, expectations, personal struggles. Success brought attention, but also weight. And not all of it was easy to carry. Still, his impact was already locked in. He proved that originality doesn't come from following rules. It comes from seeing things differently and having the courage to express it. What made him unforgettable wasn't just his writing, it was his perspective. The way he turned ordinary details into something meaningful. And that's the lesson. Don't just tell stories. Make people feel them. Don't just follow what's been done. Because when you create something real, something honest, it stays. They thought he was just playing around, but behind the humor was a strategy no one saw coming. What looked effortless was actually calculated, and that's what made it powerful. Tommy Chong didn't chase the spotlight, he created his own lane. While others followed structure, he leaned into chaos, timing, and authenticity. He understood that being different wasn't a weakness, it was the advantage. Then came the breakthrough with Cheech Marin. Together, they built something completely new. Not just comedy, but a style people connected with instantly. Real conversations, natural flow, humor that felt unforced. It wasn't polished, and that's why it worked. Projects like Up in Smoke turned that energy into a cultural shift. What started as simple humor became a movement. People weren't just watching, they were relating. It felt honest, and honesty always wins. But success didn't mean easy. Controversy, criticism, and legal trouble followed. Moments that could have ended everything. Still, he stayed consistent. Stayed true to the identity he built from the start. He adapted without losing his core. New platforms, new audiences, same authenticity. That's what kept him relevant while others faded. What made him stand out wasn't just the jokes, it was the freedom in them. No overthinking, no forcing, just real expression. And that's the lesson. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop copying what already works. Because the moment you become natural, that's the moment people connect.